And you can find me on Instagram. I have a Substack too. It's all just Ronnie Pontiac. And you pretty much covered it, man. I mean, I'm also, I've produced documentary films. I'm a musician. I've been in the band Lucid Nation for a long time, but I guess that band doesn't exist anymore because the Lucid part of it left us in July. And that's Tamra, my partner in everything, amazing human being. And I'm really happy to be here. I actually have a book called The Rosicrucian Counterculture that came out in December from Inner Traditions. And we're here to talk about The Unobstructed Way, which came out on White Crow just about a week ago.
Nice. Thank you very much. I do, just for the listeners who may not know much, about you, if you don't mind, maybe just slightly touching on, I guess, maybe your experience kind of with Manuel P. Hall before we get into your book. If maybe give a little bit more of an idea what you really did and how that you learned from him or whatever.
Sure. Okay. Well, I was before I met Manly Hall, I was really a criminal. I had a band that was nihilistic and racist. We were very popular. We had a couple of biker gangs for security, and I had like no social contract. The way I'd been treated both at home and at school and throughout my life just made me feel like the world sucked. I didn't know anything to anybody. So one day I woke up when I was about 17 and I decided, I'm going to go to war. And I realized the power of the lie. I got into violence. I was a thief. I committed mayhem. I was just an all-around bad person. And I survived by having a small group of women who would come on different nights to feed me and give me drugs and liquor. And I fell in love one night. A woman came up to me, a girl really, at a club I was at, and asked me for help. She was in a bad situation where a group of guys had kind of realized that she was somebody who'd been traumatized before, that she would freeze in a situation like that, and they were committing predatory behavior toward her. She approached me because I guess I was the scariest looking guy in the club. I was all in black, smoking a black Russian cigarette, scowling at everybody while everybody else was flirting and smiling. And when the club closed, she walked up to me and she was desperate. She was really afraid. And she said, "I need help, please," which blew my mind. I mean, you could imagine from, who I was. She'd been even warned by the guy who ran the club, "Don't talk to that guy. He's really bad news." Well, that turned out to be my wife. And we both just fell deeply in love with each other. It's not an exaggeration to say that we became infatuated with each other for all our lives, and we did everything together. She was my front woman in my band, my favorite guitar player, a really good bass player, great lyricist, my co-author and editor on everything I did, my co-producer on the films that we worked on. She was friends with Manly Hall and also his screener. And we just adventured through all this together. So she woke me up enough that I stopped being as venomous as I was, but I was still really cynical, and I didn't believe in anything. My parents were atheists, and they were war survivors, refugees. So they taught me how they felt about life, and she wasn't really cynical. Like, she loved nature, but she was pretty cynical about human beings and about society. I got lucky and I ran into an old copy of The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly Hall at the late and lamented LA bookstore, The Bodhi Tree. And it was an old tome kind of looking thing that I thought it was filled with dark magic, and it looked like the kind of book that you'd have if you were a dark wizard. So I needed to have it, but it was quite the opposite. It blew my mind when I opened it up, and it was dedicated to the rational soul of the world. And I just thought, what? Like, what does that even mean? How can that be true? And then as I started reading the book and going through the chapters, it was like suddenly it was like driving around in a car and you didn't realize it was a convertible. And you hit this button and all of a sudden it opens and the whole sky's right there. That's what my brain felt like, And so I would like read a chapter and then I'd go find her and I'd be like, "Oh my God, like, listen to this." that set up something that we did all the rest of our lives, where I would read to her from esoteric works. And um, I was just so amazed by this record of people who had the courage to seek a spiritual path on their own, who were experimenting, who weren't just taking what they were told, who risked their lives to do it. People were killed for selling a book by Agrippa in Europe in the 1600s,
Oh,
executed. And so,
great.
so not only to do the explorations under such dangerous conditions, but also to write it down for the future, to make diagrams, to share it with us, and that just blew my mind. It's something that I thought was really admirable and brave, and fighting for a better world in a way that I'd never conceived of before. So I found out later from a friend that Manly Hall was still alive, and that he was lecturing on Sundays for $1 at 11 a.m. at his Philosophical Research Society. I held out for like 3 months because I knew what I had done. Like, my soul was stained, man. I was dark. And I just thought, I'm going to go in there and that guy's going to just look at me and be like, get this scumbag out of here. Finally, Tamara prevailed on me, and she said, he's a really old man, and he's changed your life with this book, and he's right there. Like, why don't you go listen to him lecture once? And won't you feel stupid if he dies and you never even went because you were, too cowardly really to face up to it? So at that time, the same person who told me he was lecturing was really into Edgar Cayce, and had convinced me that California was about to drop off the map. Big old earthquake. So I was paranoid, man. And she was moving to Virginia Beach, the whole family just up, she wanted to take me as kind of a member of the family. And as we were walking up, Tamara noticed this crack in the concrete. This is the kind of person she was. A weed had grown through it, and it was blossoming. And she just thought to herself, isn't that beautiful? And we walked up there. We get into the crowd. We sit down. We're by far the youngest people there. I mean, it was mostly old people. And this towering old man walks out very slowly, and he sits down in this big velvet chair, and he starts lecturing. He looks right at me during the lecture, and he says, people who have irrational fears of natural disasters because they're guilty about how they've been living their lives. He looks right at her, and he says, the way that a weed can grow through a crack in the concrete and blossom into something beautiful. Now, I found out later he would do that all the time in his lectures, and he didn't see us. Like, his vision was bad at that time. He just was so deeply in what I would say the Tao. Like, he was in the flow, man, and synchronicities flurried around him. So, of course, we were just completely godsmacked by this, and we decided we've got to volunteer here. I mean, I just want to be near this guy and learn. We come up next day, Monday. We just walked in and we're like, hey, we'd do anything here, clean toilets, whatever you need. And they were like, well, we're pretty full up, But they interviewed us, and they loved Tamara because she had had a bunch of different jobs, and she didn't last long in any of them, but she learned skills. She had office skills and shipping department skills. And me, I had a biker gang for security. It was like I didn't know anything. They really had no interest in me. But then they did ask me this weird question, which was, do you have any familiarity with languages? And I said, well, I grew up around German and French and Russian and Polish, and I don't really speak any of it, but I can understand, those languages to a degree. And they were like, oh, okay. We went home. That afternoon, they called up and they offered Tamara a gig. And I said, no way, man. I'm not staying at home with the cats while you go get to be over there. Forget it. And she was like, good. I don't want to do that anyway. Like, that's why I left those gigs. I hated doing those jobs. They call the next day and they want to talk to me. So I get on the phone and they say, Manly Hall wants to meet you. And I'm like, what? Like, okay, So I go down there. They lead me into his office, and the four elderly women who run the place are all standing there with their arms crossed like this, giving me the skunk eye. But he is smiling at me, sitting behind his beautiful Chinese carved desk, and he says, "Come on in and make yourself miserable." And I sit down. He's got a pile of paper in front of him. He says, "Young man, do you know what a galley is?" And I say, "No." And he says, "This is a galley. A galley is how a book starts." And he says, "This is the galley for my bibliography. Do you know what a bibliography is?" "No." He says, "All right." He says, "Well, this is my bibliography, which is a collection, a way of cataloging. And this is my collection of Rosicrucian and alchemical books and manuscripts. I have quite a good collection of them, and we want to have them all cataloged. It's not done yet, and I need somebody to come in and finish it." And the reason it wasn't done is because he had an academic doing it, and this academic wanted to include information about like bodily fluids that were being used in alchemical recipes. And Manly Hall felt like, man, that, people can get in trouble with that stuff. And my audience isn't really that kind of audience. They're not academics. And he told the guy, take this stuff out. And the academic said, no, absolutely not. This belongs in here. So Manly Hall was like, well, then fine, you're done. I'm going to find somebody else to finish it. And he thought it was me. So he explains all this to me. And I tell him, Mr. Hall, I had a bad education. Like, I don't know anything like about this. I just learned about alchemy reading your book, and I wouldn't have the skills to do this. And he said, no, I feel certain that you're the right person. Okay, here, take the galley, go out in the library, look it over, and come back and talk to me. See if it's interesting to you. So I pick up the galley. I start out for the library. And Pat Irvin, the woman who used to run the society in those days, she ran the business side of it. She was an old military officer, and she must have run around the library. She got in front of me as I came out of the office, grabbed the papers from me. I said, that was a mistake. And I said, it was. Thank you. I was overjoyed anyway, man. I got to meet the guy and see his office. And I mean, it was just incredible, I get home and there's a call from his secretary, Edith, who says, Manly Hall, his office, tomorrow morning. All right, so I go back. Now it's just him. He says to me, young man, you take orders only from me. If anybody contradicts anything I tell you, you come and tell me. Now, I am convinced that you're the right person for this job, and this is how we're going to do it. In the morning, you will come in. I will show you what I want you to work on. You can have lunch with me in the vault, and you can examine and ask me questions about anything in the vault. And then in the afternoon, I will look over the work that you did. And I feel certain that we'll find that you will do a good job. What do you think of that? The offer to have lunch with Manly Hall in the vault amongst all those books, I mean, who would turn, I was just like, okay, like if you're, cool, you're convinced, good enough for me. And it turned out that I really had the intellectual acumen to do it. That's how I became his research assistant, because he was just like, wow, you're great. You're everything I thought you would be. But for me, I had this incredible experience of reading about, for example, the Rosicrucian manifestos that were such a huge moment in Western esotericism, and that just, basically created the 30 Years' War. It was like this huge counterculture that exploded in Europe. And so I'd read about it in his bibliography, and then I would go into the vault with him, and I'm holding it in my hands. I'm holding first editions of the Rosicrucian manifestos. I'm looking at the Backstrom manuscripts, this journal of a supposedly Rosicrucian ship's captain who was deeply into alchemy. He would do things like, here, you see that scroll over there? Give me the other end of it, and then you unfurl it. And it was a Ripley scroll, which is like this incredible masterpiece of alchemy that there's like 3 of them in the world or something.
Oh,
it was incredible, I mean, just constant inspiration, just constant, like, look at all these people who did this amazing work, and how the courage and the independence, the individuality, who rejected I mean, you want to talk about surveillance society, man. I mean, those Rosicrucian manifestos were created at a time when the Catholic Church dominated the world through the confessional, right? That, you had to confess or you would burn forever in hell. And the priests were obligated to tell their superiors what you said if it was something important for the Vatican. So the fact that they did this and that I could look at these creations and hold them in my hand completely changed my life. And I mean, pretty much everything I've done since then, even things that don't seem to be connected, were inspired from those experiences in the vault. And then ultimately, he had such faith in me that not only was I his research assistant, but one day he and Pearl, who used to organize the lecturing, said, "Hey, we want you to start lecturing. You should do that." I was like, oh man, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, it's one thing to be just walking around in the library, but you want me to get in front of people? And he was like, yeah, do it. And I asked him, I went to his house and we were sitting under this beautiful double tree that he had in the backyard. And I said, how do I do this? Like, do I take notes? And he was like, no. He was like, young man, if you can't lecture on a subject, then don't take the lecture. Like, just lecture on things you know. They gave me the primo slot Sunday morning at 11 a.m. And I did good, that people really enjoyed my lecture. And so much so that he decided that I would be his designated substitute lecturer. If he couldn't make it, he was very old and he was kind of sick sometimes, then I would have to do the lecture. And then that created all kinds of weird politics because people thought, wow, he's the new guy. Like, Manly Hall is going to make him the next guy, which wasn't really what was happening. And so then he asked me to be his screener. And he also asked Tamara to be his screener. And Tamara actually became his main screener because he trusted her more than me. I would have these like conversations with people that were like kind of affable fencing matches, and everybody wanted to manipulate him and get next to him, get a picture and stuff. He didn't have a lot of time. He was an old man. He wanted to work. But Tamara would just sit there and watch, and she was blonde. People assumed she was dumb, like many people do about blondes. And because she didn't say anything, they thought, oh, well, she's just his wife and she's here. But man, she was like, she saw through everybody. And she would just tell him, no, this guy's doing this and that, and see things that I missed. And she even warned him about the guy that very likely killed him. She warned him several times about him, but it was the one time that he didn't listen to her, which is quite an interesting mystery. After 7 years, he approached me and said, you need to go. And I was like, why? I thought he was testing my loyalty. And he said, because I'm going to die soon. And so are the people who run this place. And there will be a terrible battle over the assets. And I don't want you kids to be here.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, how kind was that?
Oh
to think about me that way and to think about Tamara that way. He was also the person who made certain that we got married because we didn't want to get married. We thought marriage kills love. And I had asked her to marry me just to have that experience of engagement with her, because I loved her so much. But we were both like, no marriage ever. No kids, no marriage. We agreed on that. And he just, one day we got this message, he wants to see you in the office. And his wife, Marie, was in there and they had our astrological charts. And he said, why don't you come back to the house and have dinner with us? We have something very important to talk to you about. And it was, we think you should get married. And I said, it's impossible. Our families are crazy on both sides. It's just not going to happen. And he said, what if I told you that Marie and I have picked 2 dates for your wedding to take place that we think fit your charts perfectly? That gave us pause, but I was still like, you don't know my parents, you don't know her family. It's not going to happen. And then he said, well, what if we did it in the backyard under the double tree right here at my house? And I was like, that's so generous. It's so lovely. But again, crazy families. And then he said, well, what if I officiate? So, we said, well, we'll think about it at that point. And then we went home and we just thought, if Manly Hall and Marie Hall pick out the date and they want to do, I mean, that's an adventure you take. Like, let's see where that goes. And so we got married in his backyard, and he did the ceremony. So, and then we left after that 7 years was up, and then had all kinds of adventures. She became a leader in the Riot Girl movement in the punk world. And I was just really her guitar player at that point, which was really fun to just kind of fade back and let her blossom. And we became filmmakers, making documentary films about, I think, important subjects, including Standing Rock, the one she worked on. She was one of the producers on End of the Line, The Women of Standing Rock, about the leaders of the Standing Rock protest, which got nominated for an Emmy. And she was an author as well, writing a book about our experiences with Manly Hall, in which I was rightfully ridiculed here and there for my naivete at the time. And we just lived this incredible adventure together that I sometimes wonder. I mean, there were weird things, like he gave us a present of these great, beautiful Chinese temple paintings of 3 musicians. But this was way before we were being musicians, and we were like, later we were like, what? Like, how did he know? He was always like that. You always, when you were around him, you were always like, how much does this guy know? Because he would foreshadow things in his gifts, or he would tell you a joke. He loved telling jokes. And then you would realize that the joke was like cutting deeply into your own shit. Like he was pointing out something about you that you needed to pay attention to. So it was just a total, people use the word blessing and throw it around, but you want to talk about a blessing? It turned my life around completely, man. It made me love culture, I've studied all the religions, all the spiritual paths, and just with joy, just loving finding out about life and finding out about history. And I caught it from him. It was contagious. He, to the end of his life, he was just so enthusiastic about those things, about a piece of art, about a well turned phrase in a mystical book, just really loved life. And he taught me to love life.
Really beautiful
story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Does anybody want to ask anything before we move on?
I have a quick question. That was beautiful. I'm laughing and near tears hearing your
thank
story.
You.
And Manly P. Hall is, got to be my favorite wisdom teacher. So it's such an honor to learn all that about him. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
I gotta ask, small little thing. What
Sure.
was your first lecture? When do you remember what your first lecture was when he suggested you?
I'm afraid I don't, but I do have one story about that you might find amusing, which is one time when I had to substitute, he had one called Marriage in the New World Order. And I was like, oh man, like that New World Order phrase, like that's not good. And so I went to see him at the house and I was like, what do you mean by New World Order exactly? And his definition was beautiful. It was about and it was really Rosicrucian in a way. It was about, if you want a universal reformation, you have to start with your personal reformation. And so what more personal reformation can you have than choosing a marriage where you grow together, where you treat each other equally, where you basically create the society that you want to see in the world in your home. So I was like, oh, okay, that's okay. I was thinking you were saying something else.
Thank you. And you had this?
Yeah, I've noticed a pattern where it's not just the people who are holding these books, it's the knowledge in these books themselves. Like there's something about the mystical nature of the knowledge being transmitted that sort of carries a spirit with it. You can sort of see these books surviving despite all the odds, and it's strange, but they kind of pick their owners in a lot of ways. And I think Manly P. Hall represented sort of like picked by these spirits to be, to continue on their legacy.
I agree with you. He used to tell me stories about how he acquired them. And he was so lucky, man. I mean, like he went to Europe in between the wars, and at that time, you can imagine, people thought that all the idealistic, mystical stuff was crap after what they experienced. Materialism was like the thing because it was going to save us from wars. Ironically, the opposite. But so he was like in London. He told me that he went into the back room of one bookstore and there was a pile of priceless manuscripts, alchemy and Rosicrucianism, and it was like, yeah, basically, you can have each one for a dime. I mean, they thought it was garbage. So he acquired this incredible collection that became worth millions of dollars for, I don't even want to say pennies on the dollar. It was like pennies on the $100 or $1,000. It all just came to him, he was like a magnet for it. And then, of course, people would leave him things, these priceless treasures, because they wanted him to have it. They wanted it to be in his library. So I agree with you. They do find, and also I can tell you a story about that, which is my American Metaphysical Religion book was started by a book in that vault. I saw this big tome, and all it said on it was The Platonist. And I was like, what's that? And he was like, oh, that's a good one. Pick that up. So I grab it and I open it, and it's a newspaper. And it's a newspaper published in around St. Louis, which then was the Western frontier. And it was like at the time of the OK Corral, the gunfight at the OK Corral. And I was like, what? Like, who did this? Why did they do it? And he was like, I don't really know much about it. He said, there's not much information. So I was fascinated with this thing and spent years and years and finally found answers to those questions, which I give in the American Metaphysical Religion book. But I always wanted my own copy, because it wasn't convenient to have to get, go in the vault. And if he wasn't there, they had to unlock the vault. And it was a big deal. One day, I'm walking with Tamara down Sunset Boulevard. And there used to be a store there called Hippocampus. It happened, it really started in the 1960s. This woman started it, basically across the street, kitty corner from the whiskey. And people like Jim Morrison and Jimi Hendrix used to go in there. And she had all kinds of weird treasures. And it was just kind of a potpourri of interesting things that she would curate. So we're in there looking around, and I see this little stack of books, and then I see The Platonist, like a bound copy of The Platonist. This is like the rarest. I mean, now you can see it online, but in those days, forget it. I mean, there were hardly any copies of it anywhere. And it's sitting on this little table, and I was blown away. And so I approached the guy behind the desk, and I said, is that book for sale? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, how much? And he said, well, what do you want it for? Is it for decoration? And I went, no, sir, we're going to read this book. So he got on the phone with the lady that ran the shop. She was old by that time, and she didn't come in. And said, no, they want to read it. And she said, $100. $100? I mean, that thing must have been worth 10 grand. I mean, it was crazy. So I had my own copy of The Platonist. So it found me, and in the weirdest place, across the street from the Whiskey A Go-Go.
That's awesome. You still have it today?
No, actually, I once it got online, I couldn't take proper care of it. A newspaper, it falls apart, and I live in a hot climate. So I had a friend, William Daly, who was a great bookseller, and I was like, hey, make sure this thing goes somewhere where it can be properly taken care of. And it's funny because it wound up being bought by a friend of mine who has a library in Sedona where it is carefully taken care of. And he was also a friend of Manly Hall. And he had no idea that I was the previous owner. So that just shows you how these things work,
That's cool as hell. I like that. Did anybody want to ask anything before we start going on to the book a little bit?
Let's get to the book.
Yeah. All right. So, it's Ronnie. What made you get into, I guess, Stuart and Elizabeth White's stuff? That's what the book is.
That started with when we were working at PRS, we met this unbelievable psychic. His name was Edward Monroe. He was a Cherokee Indian who was also a Taos Pueblo shaman, and he, Manly Hall wasn't into psychics, so we were very suspicious of psychics in general. And a guy that worked there, who is the guy who wound up having the Platonist in his library in Sedona, he was a volunteer at the time at PRS. And he said, I'm working with a psychic and I would like to introduce you to him. We'll give you a free reading. And I resisted at first, but he said, hey, all you have to do is just, tell us where you're going to be at a certain time and day. And then we'll send you a cassette tape. I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it. I mean, why not? It's an adventure, right? Well, the guy just blew my mind. I mean, he, again, he described a condition that I had that I never told anybody, including Tamara, and other things. So I went and I became very friendly with him, and he recommended that Tamara read the Betty books, which is what Stuart Edward White and Elizabeth White had written. Tamara attempted to read them for years, and she didn't like the way he wrote. He was a very famous and successful writer, but he wrote adventure and frontier books, and his books were made into movies by Disney and stuff. And he was a friend of Teddy Roosevelt, and real, like his experience of life was like gold mines, and he was a hunter. He was somebody who had worked as a lumberjack. I mean, he was one of these really manly guys, and he was a frontiersman. Teddy Roosevelt said it was the best shot that he ever met. But his writing was early 20th century style, long storytelling, long paragraphs. And Tamara was just like, man, get to the point. Like, what are you trying to say? And eventually she said to me, Ronnie, can you translate this stuff for me into modern English? Like, so I can understand why he wanted me to read it? I was like, sure, baby, yeah. So I start reading these books and I was like, whoa, okay, this is amazing. And I started to try to find information about him, and there was like nothing. And it was so weird because his books were so popular in the late 30s and in the 40s. He was the #1 metaphysical author. And now nothing. I mean, I couldn't even find out simple information about him. So that started us when I was doing the American Metaphysical Religion book on research. We went into court records. We went into county records. I mean, everything we could dig up trying to find out about these people and trying to get more information about them. And their story personally was so incredible, even beyond what they achieved, that the deeper we dug into it, the more amazed we were. When people asked me when I was being interviewed about that book, who's your favorite, character in American Metaphysical Religion? I was like, Betty. I mean, Betty and Stuart, what they did and how they lived was just incredible. So that's what started it, and it changed our lives. What we read in there, we took on some of the practices that they recommended, and then ultimately, wanting to share that with other people, we put it into the book, and it's very weird, y'all, because it's, oh my God, I mean, I don't know how to go here, but one of the weird things about them was that Betty, right before their most important book, The Unobstructed Universe, was written, where she was revealed finally as being the medium behind all these bestsellers, she suddenly got sick and she passed away. And when our book was finished, Tamara suddenly got sick, 5 days of being sick at home, 5 days in the hospital, and she passed away just before the book came out. Same thing. And Betty came back, and there were all kinds of paranormal visitations and communications around her that Stuart recorded. And they were so convincing that Carl Jung, who recommended the Betty books to people and to his colleagues, he wrote privately to a friend in a letter that he believed that Betty had given proof of the survival of consciousness after death. So when Tamara passed, I remember sitting here with a couple of friends that we had shared the manuscript we'd written with, and it changed their lives too. And I said, just in my grief, I was kidding. She said, gee, wouldn't it be nice if Tamara did what Betty did? And within a week, I started getting these letters from people who were like, I saw Tamara, or I heard Tamara, or Tamara told me to say this to you, or I had a dream where Tamara said that. I mean, it was with tons of corroboration and hitting things like, I'll tell you one embarrassing story about me, but it shows you the kind of thing I'm talking about. So when I would get into a mood where I was like, let's say, as we all do, I was kind of a neurotic housefrau, like for instance, Tamara had a fan that she would leave on day and night, and it was like this $30 Chinese fan, and I'd read Amazon reviews saying the thing caught fire. So I would be like, girl, turn that thing off, man. We're all gonna die. Like we tried to burn the house down, and she would turn around and she'd say, okay, Mildred. Like Mildred was her nickname for me when I was being a neurotic housefrau. And sometimes she would refer to herself that way. She'd be like, oh man, I've gotten totally Mildred here. Now, this was something that was never said in front of anybody else because it was embarrassing. It was very personal. It was just within our relationship. This one woman started to get messages from Tamara, and she's not a medium. She's a theosophist who's very suspicious of spiritualism and really wasn't comfortable. But Tamara like barged in and started telling her stuff. So she wrote it down for about 3 months. And then she finally got up the courage and said, Ronnie, I've been writing down these things that I think are Tamara, but am I crazy? Like, I finally, please just tell me if I'm all way off here, if this sounds like Tamara. Well, one of the messages was, and you must understand that I thought Tamara hated Mildred, right? Like that side of me, because when she'd say it, it was so dripping, it was like, okay, Mildred, like, shut up. The message was, tell Ronnie to tell Mildred that I love her. Damn, man. I mean, how do you find that? I mean, how does the name Mildred come up?
Yeah.
And in a way like that was so healing to me at a time when I was so grief stricken, where she's saying, you know what? I even loved Mildred, Ronnie. Like, so that's just one example of, so many that, like Stuart Edward White said about Betty, you start out thinking it's crazy to believe it, but when they pile up, it becomes crazy to not believe it. And it continues. So in the book, I have 39 examples of it. I've collected now close to 100, but there's a lot going on that I don't know about because I'll have interactions with people on social media, and they'll say something about Tamara, and I'll say, oh, well, don't be surprised if she visits you. And they'll be like, yeah, she already is. She's helping me write my book, or things like that. And so it's we studied this all our lives. I've studied this stuff all my life, and but when it happens to you like that, it's so surreal. Like my whole sense of the world of life is like, I can't even describe. I mean, I'm still learning my way around this new world that I'm in, where these things happen, and it doesn't make up for the loss of the physical person. I'm always going to carry a deep wound because she was my favorite person in the world. I mean, the love of my life and my reason for living. And there were so many things about her that just made every day of my life so joyful. I told her, that my life was one long night until the day that she came to me and asked for help. And then it was like the sun rose and it stayed up, for 4 decades, every single day of just, even if we were going through hard times or we weren't getting along or something, we were still I was just so happy to be around her, to see her, to hear her laughter. She made everything so joyous. And she filled the house with just, animals and plants that flourished around her the same way Betty did. And then suddenly she was gone. And it was so devastating. It was so fast. And the hospital had told me, she'll be back in 3 days, and there was some kind of medical malpractice. They fucked up and they killed her basically. And so, all of a sudden I was left with like, oh my God, she's gone, and I still wake up sometimes thinking she's next to me. And I have to realize she's never going to be next to you again, man. Like, not in the physical form. It's gone. and all those things that were so special to you about her. Her favorite music when she was a kid, the things that the cultural references that you joke about that are your inside jokes, her deep knowledge of me that she would help me with when I was going through hard times, the things that we love to eat, just all the little silly things, just even something as innocent as when you come home and the person you love says, hi, all that like gone. And so even though this communication is happening and she has come to me, the first week after she died was just brutal. I mean, we used to say that together we made a decent human being. And a friend of mine said, well, you must feel like you lost your arm. And I was like, no, I feel like an arm that lost its body. Okay. And I didn't know how I was going to go on. And the Sunday night at the end of that week, when I realized that the week coming up was going to be death certificates and cremation and dealing with lawyers and accountants and all the shit you have to do in this sick society when somebody dies, I didn't know how I was going to face it, man. I just couldn't see how I could go on. And that Monday morning, she came to me, and it was like this liminal. I hesitate to say I was asleep, so you could say it was a dream, but it was unlike anything I've ever experienced. There was no, place or narrative. There was light, and I would describe it as soul fusion. Like I got slight glimpses of her. There was no talking. It's just like this love that infused me, and it was kind of like fucking, but like 100 times more like amazing and soul fusing. And in it came this perspective that I woke up with, which was death certificates, ashes of the body. These things are trivial. They're the trivia of living in an impermanent world. And as a soul that is originating and returning outside time, that is not subject to impermanence, these things shouldn't bother you. And I really felt that to the core when I woke up from that experience, where I was able to deal with all those terrible details and really feel like it's just the trivial things that you do. You've got to clean up the things that are left over. You've got to satisfy the bureaucratic necessities, and they're not a big deal. They're not important. They have nothing to do with the living soul.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's a long answer.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, man.
Did any of you have anything you wanted to ask or say?
You mentioned that Manly P. Hall was, I forget the term they used, he didn't like, or he was questionable of psychics, but it also would appear that he was highly intuitive. So how did that, was it just that he thought most of them that claimed so were shysters? Or?
Yeah, because he was friends with Hugh Lynn Casey, Edgar's kid. So, and he would do things with ARE. So I think that he felt like there were psychics. He studied people like Andrew Jackson Davis, but he thought that most of them were fraudulent. And if they weren't fraudulent, that they could entangle people. I mean, one thing to know about him was, as his screener, I saw this. It was a hell of an education. He was like the last resort for people who got fucked up on their spiritual path. People who did ceremonial magic and then thought, oh my God, did I do that right? And then they freaked out and they thought they were being haunted by demons. People who got into spiritualism, and then they thought, there's ghosts that are bothering me all the time and I can't shut it off. Every form of spirituality, even the most innocent, could create these imbalances that ruined people's lives. And when they exhausted all the possibilities, they would come to Manly Hall. Please help me. I don't know what to do. So he saw so many people. He felt the same way about ceremonial magic and about Crowley. He was like, that stuff is really dangerous. Like, it's good. Like somebody who gets it, it can be very liberating and it's got a lot of knowledge in it. But for somebody who's a beginner or somebody who has psychological issues, this stuff is a minefield. And he saw the results of that. And then I saw it too as his screener. So I think that the reason that he was down on psychics was kind of, that's too dangerous a path. He felt like, in fact, the funny thing is that Stuart Edward White had a very similar opinion. He says in the Betty books to be really explore it yourself. Like don't get into weird occult paths or become dependent on a medium, or don't even be dependent on us. Like his whole thing was, go out and explore. Like, I'll give you the techniques, I'll give you what you need to know so that you can find your path. Because as he said, every fellow has to figure it out for himself. And Manly Hall felt that way too. So I heard him once, Manly Hall, say to somebody who just wouldn't leave him alone, was just like, be my guru, be my guru, be my guru. Drove him crazy. And finally, one of the very rare times that Manly Hall raised his voice, and you could hear him out in the library, this loud voice, and he said, young man, life is your teacher. The world is your teacher. And this is the same thing that Stuart believed and taught. And people tried to get Stuart to teach classes or to start an organization, and he was always, no, 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 no. I wrote the books to get you all started. Now you got to walk the path with your own feet.
Well, I would be remiss to leave out the Colonial Williamsburg debacle. Do you have any more information about that adventure? Because that one sticks in my mind, because was there really Templar treasure that the Rockefellers purchased and then turned that place into a historical landmark to prevent anyone from getting to?
I don't know. It's a funny thing about Marie, because Marie is pretty much dismissed these days as, Mad Marie. She was crazy. And during her life, people dismissed her. They thought she was the wrong wife for him, that she never loved him. And even today, there are so-called experts out there who will tell you that she was just manipulating him, that they did not have a relationship really. Just her desire to promote herself is what drove the relationship. I was around them at home a lot, and they loved each other. I have never seen old people. They were like teenagers with each other. I mean, they were so sweet on each other. It was so cute. And I think part of the reason was that Marie was an adventurer. She was like this passionate, she'd drive you crazy, man. She part of this was undiagnosed diabetes, sugar spikes, but the belief system behind it was heavy, and Manly Hall asked me to work with her and to like Tamara did about the Stuarts, can you translate this into modern, simple English? And so I learned a lot from her about her belief system. And it's pretty amazing. And she did weird things like what you're describing, which happened because she was finding these codes in these old books, and they led her. They led her to.
She was on to something. Have you ever heard of the Society of the Cincinnati?
Yes.
That's where it's coming through. That she was just tracking it back through the family lineage.
She was finding things. That's the other thing, it's like she goes to Williamsburg and then she's looking at these graves and she's finding these codes in them. And she says, there's going to be a church foundation right here. And they were like, no, there's nothing here. And at that time they were still letting her do things. So they let her check it out. And there was, she did find a church foundation. So something was going on there. Now, her whole story about the Rockefellers and how they swept it away. And there's actually a funny little story here, because she told Tamara and I about this, and she was saying, oh, just wait till the world hears how Francis Bacon cared about the world and America and how he was behind the Shakespeare plays. And when we open up this treasure trove, we're going to find the proof that it was the Rosicrucians and Francis Bacon who put together America and who gave us this wonderful tradition. And when people hear about it, everything will change. And Tamara made Manly Hall laugh because she said, well, I went to school with a lot of people who like bacon, but not that kind. And that was her way of saying, really, Marie, like, people don't give a damn about it. I mean, even if you found that stuff, there would be some people who would be like, wow, but most people would just not care. Marie somehow thought that we were on the verge of this huge awakening. And one of the interesting things, especially given today's world, was that her metaphysics was based around the idea of what she called the space mother, which was the true primal deity. And this was the creator that created everything. And the space mother was so compassionate and so filled with love that she let her son, who we think of as God, Jehovah, the demiurge, if you want, is very Gnostic in a way, believe that he was the creator. And she backed out of it. She gave him the space and the creative power. And so he turned her paradise into a hell, into the world that we live in now, because he was living in forgetfulness of the truth of where he came from and why the world was made. He was all about control and just typical kind of I'm the powerful one behavior. She was compassionate and filled with love, and she thought that he would wake up and he would remember her and would redeem the world. But her belief was that women were going to be the ones who saved the world. She would always say, someday men are just going to go too far, and the women of the world, the mothers of the world, they're going to wake up. The space mother, or you can call it the Christ principle, or you can call it the Buddha, whatever you want. She would say, there are many words in every culture for it, is going to wake up in their souls, in their hearts. And they are, with their compassion, they're going to change the world. That was her belief. So now, as far as Bruton Vault and all that stuff in Virginia, it's funny because I talked to this really wonderful academic who helped me with my American metaphysical religion. And he was a young person at the time that she did that. And he heard her on the radio. And he said, Ronnie, she was so scary, because this was during the time of the Nazis, and she had like this German accent, and she was talking about New World Orders on the radio, digging around in the graveyard. We were just like, what is going on here? But you have to see how this looked to Manly Hall, right? Manly Hall is now, he's getting deeply into his middle-aged, time of life, and he's feeling kind of bored in a way. I mean, he's been writing books forever and giving lectures, and this crazy little woman, 4'11", comes screaming into his life, and she's like the Indiana Jones of metaphysics, right? I found the vault. I'm going there, and I got permission from she's writing letters to the president. FBI agents are showing up at their door. It was exciting, and she was also just such a. She told me once, she said, when I met Manly, he was living in, I think it was the Ennis house, one of the Frank Lloyd Wright's house. But she said he was living in this big, creepy house with black curtains blocking out the sunshine, and this creepy little manservant. And I tell you, she said, once I got in his life, all that nonsense was over. She said, I opened up all the curtains and windows, and he had a good German breakfast every morning. So, she really took care of him, but they could get so passionate. I mean, like one time they took Tamara and I to the Norton Simon Museum because there was this incredible exhibit of Buddhist art. And to hear these two talking about the stuff, man, was just like, their knowledge was so deep. And so they could talk to each other on a level that he couldn't talk to anybody at, I mean, and about all the different subjects, because she was right there with him. So they had a really amazing marriage, and it's such a shame. It really bothers me to see how he's been treated, in the world of podcasting. And there's all these crazy rumors about him, and he's a reptilian, he's an Illuminati, and how Marie was this worthless person who parasited on him. And I was there, I had dinner with him 100 times, at the house. I mean, I saw what they were like and how they treated us, that Marie took Tamara aside when I was becoming a very popular lecturer. And she said, Tamara, don't let him follow the path that Manly took. Don't let him become addicted to the adoration of his fans. You need to find a way to do something together so you can grow together, or else you're going to wind up like me. You're going to be ridiculed, and you're going to be thought of as being not good enough for him. And Tamara was already seeing that there were women coming around who were like, that pretty blonde girlfriend, she's not right for him. He needs an intellectual like me, and that's what led us ultimately into the position of doing music, which he suggested would be the right thing for me to do. And Tamara watched me going through auditions for months, and just going, wow, these people are idiots. And finally she said to me, if those morons can play guitar, this moron can play guitar. And she said, give me a few months just to learn some chords and I'll be your guitar player. And I was like, well, if you're going to learn, I'm going to learn too. Let's learn together, And then to my shock, she emerged as this like leader in Riot Girl and, this feminist punk movement. And it was amazing. I mean, thank God that Marie told her that, or we might have been in a position where she never would have been able to do all the amazing things that she did and help all the people. I mean, I just did a celebration of life for her, and I was here every day. I had no idea, man. The testimonials that I got about her uncanny ability to reach out to people at the right time, like somebody that she'd been interviewed by 6 months ago, and they suddenly have something horrible happen in their lives, and she's right there the next day going, hey, I was thinking about you, how you doing? And gives them the advice that makes them realize they can go on, they can still have a good life. And over again I got these testimonials from people. So that girl would have just been my wife, making food in the kitchen, instead of literally saving people's lives out there and lifting so many artists, so many musicians, artists, filmmakers that she gave opportunities to, that they went on and made something out of. And I think Marie is responsible for that in a way.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah, it is, man. It's amazing what they gave us. I mean, it just humbles me to think about it. It's just, if only we could all live like that,
We got
to have that kind of impact. Pardon?
Right? We got to start having new adventures. All of this is born out
Absolutely,
of
man. That's the thing. The world is so much more incredible and magical than, I mean, that's one thing that I was talking about at her COL was we made all our decisions based around love. We were like, how does this impact our love? So she had opportunities. She had, if you all have ever heard of Danny Goldberg, he was VP for Swan Song Records for Zeppelin, and then he became Nirvana's manager, and he was president of Atlantic Records and some other big record companies. He loved her, and he tried to sign her several times. And she was just like, no, I don't want to be famous. That's not why I'm doing it. I mean, how rare is that? But part of the reason she didn't want to be famous was she could look at it and go, that's going to fuck up our lives. That's going to fuck up our relationship. Like, forget it, man. And so people thought we were crazy. They would, every time we had a good opportunity like that people would kill for, and we'd be like, no, we're not going to do it. They were like,
oh no, that's horrible. Damn, right in the middle of it.
It was an amazing interview so far. I mean, it was.
Yeah, right.
I got so much out of it.
I sometimes fantasize about how much better the world would be if we just constantly played Manly P. Hall lectures in schools and in cafes, and because his knowledge is so amazing. And I remember listening to one, and it was like 2 hours on something so deep and so profound and putting together all these amazing things. And I was like, wow, I inferred, he just confirmed this. I inferred that he didn't have any notes and was just presenting this whole thesis and bringing together all these different deep tangents, and it was all in his head. And it was just like, it's so mind-blowing, his knowledge and wisdom. That it's so cool to hear Ronnie confirm how amazing of a person he was.
Right.
I rarely like what is it? Jen always says I'm, how he's, variously fanboying out on people. Manly P. Hall is like the guy. Like, man, he's amazing.
Right. But it's so funny to hear him confirming all this stuff about the New World Order and all the rest of that stuff, going back to Francis Bacon and the New Atlantis, the book that he wrote, because all of that stuff has to do with Manly P. Hall included that section in his book about Francis Bacon and Shakespeare, right? That's what turns a lot of people on to this stuff is, well, hey, is there other stuff about Francis Bacon that has to do with, the colonies or something else? And they follow the trail all the way to colonial Williamsburg, just like she did. So it's really fascinating that she was like one of the first pioneers of doing that research and actually finding this vault, because it's, if you've ever seen the movie American Treasure, I think that's what it's called, but it's the one with Nicolas Cage. All of that stuff is based around that same literature coming up from Francis Bacon and Shakespeare and stuff. So I mean, it goes to the heart of the formation of the country, which is fascinating.
Absolutely fascinating.
I don't know what to do. I wonder if, for all I know, something could have went down. His computer broke. I don't know. I guess I have
Do you have
to.
his,
Yeah, I can.
his number?
No, I could DM him on Instagram. He's only pretty good like that. But
Yeah, that's just so cool to hear his stories about them.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask him, even though it's a dark question, but he seemed open to it. The fact that it seems like he believes, like it would be kind of what the story unfolds as, that he believes Manly P. Hall was killed.
Right.
yeah, he said something about that earlier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't even know how he died.
Well, people say he was choked. I don't know exactly the circumstances, but yeah, everyone points to this one person that was in his inner circle that he was kind of talking about. Maybe Headless, were you going to say?
No, I was going to ask that question too. It's just kind of, I thought that was, he mentioned it like it was well established, like people already knew that this guy killed him. Like,
yeah. I was like, oh, maybe I just don't know this, because the way
in
he
the
said
spiritual,
it,
it seems to me that, like, in the spiritual and esoteric community, that they lean to the fact that he was murdered, but no one was ever, and this one individual was never, prosecuted or anything.
Right, but it was interesting when he said his wife was helping write people's books. That's almost like exactly what I was trying to get at with the first thing. It's like there are spirits around these authors, like inspiration and these other sort of ideas that come into your head that you put down on paper that transfer over to other people. It's
She's a muse.
Right. She's a muse.
I was going to ask him too. One thing I noticed Manly P. Hall was really knowledgeable at, which kind of blew me away for his time period. I guess maybe not necessarily he's a knowledgeable person, but he seemed to know a lot about the nuclear era and was super against it. And, with the whole New World Order progression and systemization, all his knowledge with that, it's interesting that he was, had this idea about nuclear experimentation. I believe it was him. He said the nuclear situation, it is supposed to be a mode of defense, but it actually removes the ability for every animal to defend themselves, period.
Right.
It's like the complete destroyer, to where we have no defense.
Well, in his book, when he was talking about the New Atlantis and America's Secret Destiny, he's writing about the New World Order in a positive context. He's talking about it, how it's going to be a new golden era with these new spiritual principles and all the rest of the stuff. And it's like, that's not the direction that it went at all. You kind of see the results of it, but how, what was being said between mystics and government central planners, because I think there is some
right.
kind of a connection there, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess he's not coming back.
Yeah, I think at this point, I mean, it's probably safe to say he's not coming back.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, I wanted to
Well,
ask a
that
little
was
book actually, but yeah.
Is the book out already?
anyway.
Let me see.
Yeah, I think he said it came out last week. I'm sorry, I forget the title that he said though.
The Unobstructed Way. I think it is out. Yep. Get the paperback for $18.99 and the Kindle for $8.99.
Go get it, guys.
Yeah.
If you love Ronnie Pontiac, I'm going to definitely get it. So,
Yeah, that guy's the man.
All
His
right.
story reminds me too of like how the idea of do you want someone who knows the way or someone who's been there? Like the fact that he, this idea that he says he was a criminal and did all this stuff, like he's been there, he's been all up and down, but the whole kind of ladder of the society.
right.
Super interesting.
The first time I had him on when it was just me and Lisa, he spent a little bit more kind of talking about his background, Manly P. Hole. Yeah, the guy did like a total 180, man. Like, his story, like his life and everything. Pretty impressive
cool.
story. Yeah. It's the hero's journey. Almost.
Really? Yeah,
Absolutely.
very much.
I guess we'll just wrap it up. I don't think at this point he'll be coming back. I think he would have been.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I mean, at least we got about an hour in, so I only normally keep authors here for an hour and a half.
Any
anyway.
chances of him coming back after,
I could always try to ask him again. Yeah. You know what? This time around, I was lucky. I caught him. I don't know if he stuck to his word. He made like a post on Instagram that he was only going to do like a certain amount of podcasts. And that if you're interested, you better get in touch with him kind of soon. He was only going to take like a certain amount of shows for right now. I was like, oh, you can jump on that. So, yeah. But yeah, I'll talk to him. I'll talk to him and see if I can try to get him on again in the future. I'd definitely like to talk
someone
to him
in
more.
the chat just asked you what the name of the book was again.
Oh, yes. It is The Unobstructed Way, a true account of the exploration of life after death. Actually, the title of the show. That's the book. So, yeah, check it out. And he also has, he's got some real good stuff on the Rosicrucians. The last time we had him on, he covered the Rosicrucians. Did a really good job. Pointed out a lot of stuff. Yeah, some pretty interesting stuff. And at the time, I was heavily into it, and he made a couple of connections that I was surprised about. I think he even was like telling me, I think he was the one who brought up Jacob Boehme, actually, ends up Boehme, however you say his fucking name. Ended up having contact with King James as well. I was just like, geez, how many fucking occultists did this guy talk to?
Well, King James
Right before he handed us the Bible.
right?
Huh?
He wrote a book on demonology. Like that was his other big published work was Demonology by King James.
Yeah, it was
He was all
interesting to
about
see
it.
how many occultists and people that visited that guy. Like, oh, okay. Just there's more proof that he shouldn't take the Bible literal. That's all. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just, yeah. But yeah, I guess we'll let everybody plug their shows or whatever. Judith, let everybody know what's up with you and where they can find your stuff.
Yes, this is the Loon. You can catch me on YouTube as the Loon and on Twitter as at the Loon. And I do see we had a few views on Twitter actually. And don't forget to hit the heart button. So if you go out there, but guys, and hit the like button.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, he just said now he got a blackout, and he says the only thing he can use is his phone, and he's having a problem connecting with his phone. So
Is he in the area? Is he in the vicinity of the storm? I know it's a vast storm.
Yeah, I was gonna ask him that actually. I was like, yeah, I wonder if that's like the storm that's coming. Hope not.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that.
Yes. Yeah, neither am I. My man Headless, what is going on, bud?
How you doing? You can find me at the Headless Giant on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And I do a bunch of shows, and they're good. So go subscribe, hit the like button.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. And Ethan Indigo, my man.
That was so fun. Thanks, you guys, for communicating all those ideas. Thanks, Nick, for getting him on. He was awesome. Ethan Indigo Smith, easy to find on all of the social media, and I write without a lisp, so that's good. That's good. So
Yeah, you're supposed to edit in there actually. A couple extra, digits in there will make the book look bigger at the end. It all adds up, right?
Yeah, I got to cut down is my problem. Some
Really?
editing processes you got to expand. Sometimes you got to cut.
Yeah, cut down.
Mostly I got to cut because I'm a New Yorker. I just
No, I don't. I do the same with my own shit. Yeah, no, thank you guys for coming on. Kind of an announcement. I'm actually really excited. I spoke to him myself today on the phone. We got David Shoemaker for February 22nd to come on. That should be pretty fucking wild. Huge influence on me when I was in the OTO with Thelema. He has a book called Living Thelema. He's a psychologist, so he looks at shit a little bit differently. Very interesting fellow, and really excited to get him on. I think it'll be a really interesting talk. Yeah, it should be cool. And then tomorrow we also got if I can pronounce this lady's name, please forgive me if I screw it up. Not tomorrow. Oh yeah, tomorrow we got Heron Michelle coming on, Elemental Magic book. Cool thing about her for people that are listening. She actually works at the store like 10 minutes away from my house. I got like 3 kind of witchy stores over by me. Luckily, it's amazing how they're actually right near me. And she works at one of them. I went in, I was checking it out, and I saw that she had a book. And I was like, I got a podcast. Can I leave some stickers? And if you want to talk about your book, you can come on. So worked out, got her coming on tomorrow. And then also Sunday, we got Nitasia. I'm probably screwing that up. Roland, Nitasia, Roland. And she's got her own tarot deck. Well, first off, if Inner Traditions happens to be listening, you need to step your fucking game up. Wiser sends me books from all these people that I'm having on my show now. I must have had at least 15 authors on Inner Traditions, not one fucking book. Come on, let's go. Send me some books. This person hasn't even come on my show yet, and Wiser sent me the fucking tarot deck. And even the case that it's in, I feel like it's expensive. I was just like, geez, wow. These cards are really, really fucking nice. I mean, the artistic. I would say if you guys remember like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, it's almost like that kind of art that was in those books. It's very like kind of dark, but it's like cool as shit. The cards, I mean, it's a gold trim around them. There's like a book. Yeah, I'm gonna like bring the thing on. I'll probably take pictures of it and shit too, but I'm gonna show it on the screen while she's there. It's a really nice fucking deck. So we got her coming on. That should be pretty interesting.
Well, we got we did the tarot card thing yesterday. Why don't we do that again today? See what tarot card we got.
Oh yeah. All right, go for it, man. Yeah, go for it.
Since we brought up tarot at the end, great idea.
Looks like the Knight of Swords.
Oh shit!
Knight of Swords. That kind of seems like Ronnie Pontiac and a little Manly P. Hall, right? The guy who's riding. I was going to
mention that his story is like the spiritual warrior. He starts off as an aimless warrior in kind of a negative context, and he gets some direction, and he's a spiritual warrior.
Right, and swords, that's sort of the knowledge suit. So you're talking about being like a warrior for knowledge. I like it.
Nice. Yo, next show we do, I'll pick one from my deck. Well, we can all take turns.
You got it.
I'd rather stick to the major arcana though. I'm not good with the minor arcana, to be totally honest. Yeah, I don't know why. I'm just more drawn to the major arcana. But yeah, that was cool. Yeah, so check out this weekend. We got stuff coming up. Yeah, Hellas, you got anything coming up?
Yeah, I got the trilogues on Sunday with Ethan, and yeah.
What about you, Judith? You got anything planned for your own channel that you might be talking about or dropping?
I have my buddy check. I was kind of late because it was supposed to be yesterday, so I'll probably be posting that recording tomorrow. And then I have my weekly brunch, and I'm working on a special blog-ish, like it's not occultish, but it's more about comic books coming up soon.
Okay, nice. All right, cool. There's actually some people in the conspiracy community that make comic books, so it's not unusual.
I had a thought about trying. I couldn't find an artist about doing a. This is when I was in the OTO, a comic book on Aleister Crowley, but that never came about.
It could have got weird.
Nick,
Yeah,
who's
good.
the girl that we have on? Who's I guess she's a OTO member that makes all of her own books, and she's got like 16 or so different comics. What's her name? Wasn't she on with?
I'm trying to think about who is this? Got comics?
She's got the tattoo on her shoulder. I forgot her name.
Oh, you talking about Dr. Heather Fitzgerald?
No,
No, I'm a little confused who you're talking about.
she's been on 2 of our shows. I forgot her name though.
Oh, Sabrina. Yeah. You know what's so funny? I totally forgot she wrote books when you said tattoo down her arm. I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she does all of her own books. She does all of her own publishing. You should check her out. Sabrina, what's her last name?
Oh, fuck.
But she's on Instagram.
Yeah. I'll send you her information if you want on her Instagram. Get in touch with her.
That'd be great. I'd be happy to collaborate with her.
Yeah, Sabrina Scott.
If she's willing to.
Sabrina Scott. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. For some reason, I thought you meant like I forgot she was a guest too. Yeah, I forgot.
Right.
Yeah. No, she wasn't associated with the OTO. I think that's what threw me off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. No, but yeah, I think she did like self. I think she did all that shit herself. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up here. Thank you, everybody in the live. That's what's up. We had a good time, and check out the other shows we got coming up. And yeah, until the next one, everybody be well. Later.